Synthfest 2023. If you're not familiar, it's a yearly convention, and you guessed it, about synthesizers. There's so many brands displaying each year that you can try out the latest gear and see what the industry's doing. In this video, I'm going to cover some of the highlights that I experienced while I visited this year. So the first stand I stopped at was a Midi stand. Now I'm going to cover this in more detail soon, but it was interesting to see what the Midi Innovation Award winners were. There's a demonstration of like a control pad, and it was touch sensitive, allowing for pressure and direction to kind of be recorded. And this was through like force sensing resistors. So you got aftertouch and pitch bending on individual note, which is really cool. But it's not something I really ask for, but still, maybe if I got used to it, I would actually use it. The layout is quite interesting as well, so it lends itself for music theory, being each row's at the circle of fifths, and it's offset similar to an accordion, so that different clusters of buttons create different chords. So once you've learnt a shape, you can actually transpose that shape around really easily. Once more, I don't think it really worked for me, as I can do a lot of what I want with a keyboard, though if you're not familiar with a keyboard, then this layout might actually be something really interesting for you. The next stand I visited was Soundgas, and it's great meeting the vendors and the people behind the brands and find out what they're about. As always, there was lots of weird and interesting technical instruments on the stall, and there's definitely some stuff that they sell that I would love to add to my studio. One thing I did have a play of was this oak log slice that Summer Labs have injected with some amazing noise-making machines. It does take up a lot of real estate in the studio. It's just so cool, and I quite like the creativity. I like what someone's looked at this and went, I'm going to make a really interesting musical instrument. It does inspire you to kind of create your own and not be stuck by the boundaries of what a synthesizer should look like. So last time I visited, I actually didn't go to any of the talks. So I kind of sent it my mission this year to try and watch every talk that was on. So the first talk was about the Theremin, and it was by Lydia Kavana. And it was really interesting to see someone who's actually trained to play the instrument. It was almost like a classical instrument, played like a cello. So the hand movements and the vibrato were really interesting to actually see in the flesh. And it was quite inspiring to kind of go out there and make my own music. And I think just that seminar alone was worth the ticket price. I'm sure that's going to appear on YouTube soon, so I'm going to not say too much more on that and just link to it. So after this talk, we made our way to the UDO stand, and there was a Gemini on display and also a Super 6. The Super 6 is a synth that I've seen plenty online and also in magazines, but never actually got my hands on, so I was quite keen to have a go. And I wasn't disappointed. It's such a cool synth, and I really like the aesthetics of it. I like the layout of it, and it was actually cool seeing some demonstration of the Gemini. There was quite a crowd around this one, so I couldn't actually get to it, but I could definitely hear other people play it, and it's really cool. Playing the Super 6, it felt like a real sturdy, solid machine, and that's something you don't really get a sense of when reading about these synthesizers, is what it actually feels like to play. In the short term I had to go, I really liked it, but it's definitely one of those synths that you can spend a lot more time, so I would love more time with this synth to fully get to know what it can do. So one thing I find about Synthfest is it's really inspiring, and one of the stalls that really inspired me was AMCS, and this had a Game Boy Advance that was set up as a synthesizer, and I think that's really cool. I've seen Sam from Look No Mum Computer do it, never actually had to go myself, so maybe that's something on the future project list. So next we had modular perfection cases, and this was such a cool stand. One thing I really want to do is kind of get into modular and build my own case, but looking at the level of craftsmanship and detail on these cases is absolutely unreal. I would get one of these. It's so cool. But that brings on to the next talk, which is on the DX7. I've just acquired a DX7, though it's in quite poor shape, so this talk was right up my street. So this talk was a demonstration of how the QX1, the RX7, DX7 all kind of coexisted, and also how it evolved into an FM synthesis that's still around now. So the DX7 was released in 1983, and one thing that really kind of amazes me is it's one of the best-selling synthesizers ever. In the following year, 40% or at least 40% of the songs in the top 100 featured a DX7. And also, I kind of attribute this to the Deafened electric piano, the Wurlitzer, the Fender Rhodes. These were big clunky machines that created mainly one noise. The DX7 could create so many noises so easily in such a light but rugged constructed case. If you think about 80s music and the DX7, they're just so linked so strongly. It's really cool. But I think once I get my DX7 working and restored as I like it, we'll cover some more of that in the future. So do subscribe. There's some cool synth stuff coming up. So the next stand I visited was a Decksaver stand, and this is a brand that I wasn't that sure on because to me I thought it's quite expensive for a bit of plastic. But when I bought my Korg mini log, it actually came with Decksaver, and it's a really quite solid construction. It fits really well, and it kind of inspired me to buy more from my other synthesizers. So I've got a video coming up on that. It's going to be a review over time. Decksaver are a local-ish company to me, so they're based in Leeds, close to the Rhodes factory, and that grey smoke top definitely looks familiar. So the final talk of the day was on Midi, and it was split in two parts. The first part was about the Midi Innovation Awards, and to me I thought it's quite an interesting topic, and it's good that Midi pay back to the community by encouraging this type of thing. And it kind of got me thinking, I wonder if I could come up with something myself, or at least what would I like to see in the Midi Innovation Awards. So I think watch out for the future of the channel. I'd definitely like to contribute to that. Then the second part was about how Midi 2 was going to come in and what it offered. So with Midi 2 you get a lot more increments between velocity levels, you get a lot more choice of channels and how much information you can store, but also it actually like labels the data as it stands, sends it across. And I think for some applications, like say if you were programming an entire orchestra, I can see why you might need this level of detail. For my studio, my setup, I really like Midi 1. I like the way you plug it in and you plug it into something else, and somehow it mostly works. It does no need for anything too smart. It just sends some note numbers, and the other bit of equipment interprets that or ignores that, and it just sticks to the clock. I really like it. I'd be kind of scared of overcomplicating it. It's not something I feel limited by. Everyone's different. If people need more resolution between velocity steps and the ability to kind of put expression on individual notes, then I totally get that. But for the stuff I do, it doesn't quite work. It isn't quite needed. So this is maybe where I made a bit of a mistake at Synthfest by going to all the talks, that I couldn't actually get around all the rooms and see all the displays. So there was an actual couple of rooms below the main room, which had Yamaha, Korg. So I did have a chance to look at the Moog, and that was really cool. I think that's one of my favourites of the synths out at the minute, and I feel kind of bad for the people working there. It was very proud to be an employee-owned company. I really want to see what the new shareholders are going to do with the company. If they bring new technology and new synths and keep that Bob Moog idea alive, then cool. But I feel like it's a bit of a risk at the minute. There was a whole room of Yamaha equipment. It was interesting to try out some of their percussive drum machines and also have a go at some of their weighted keyboards. That's one thing I don't have in my studio, and one thing I've been trying to work on is my piano playing. So it's definitely something I'd be looking out for. And the small go I did have of the Yamaha weighted keyboards, I was very impressed. But I am suspecting that there's a new model or two coming out soon, so watch this space. And then the next thing I had to go was Osmos keyboard. Now this is really weird. So going back to me having piano lessons and trying to improve, this thing is not meant to be played like a piano at all. So as you press a key, you can kind of apply expression by moving side to side. But it kind of, to have that expression, there's a certain sponginess and sappiness to it. So if you want to play this like a piano, I don't think, I'm sure it could be done, but it doesn't feel quite so natural. But as something that's like an expressive controller, yeah, it's really cool. And one thing I've started to notice at Synthfest is that a lot of the new synthesizers coming in have got really good screens. These are like really detailed coloured screens. These are no longer just kind of displaying the basic information. They're like full-on operating systems. So it'll be interesting to see where the future goes. Will the future of synths look more like iPads and it'll be more software driven? Or are we tied to dedicated hardware? I really like dedicated hardware, but who knows? It's interesting to see these changes from year on year. And then the final stand I had a look at was the Rhodes stand. It's great to see the Rhodes company doing well. They seem to have plenty of orders in at the minute. Plenty busy at the stand, so I didn't really get a go. Anyways, that's enough about Synthfest. I'm going to follow up some of these topics with separate videos in the future. It's great seeing so much amazing gear and having a go of it, but it was also nice meeting the brands and the people behind them. I do recommend going to Synthfest. Next year I'm going to try and go to Synthfest and the Bristol one, but we'll see. We'll see if we can do it. But that's it for now. And stick around, there's lots coming before now and New Year.